The ship shook again as Captain Jake Morrison gripped the metal railing. His knuckles turned white as another blast hit the hull. The lights flickered for a moment before the backup power kicked in. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, with quiet focus. They had been running for 3 years now, and everyone knew how to stay calm when things got bad. "How much longer until we reach the planet?" Jake asked his navigator. 2 hours, Captain," came the reply. "The scanners show it's safe to land." Jake nodded but kept his worry to himself. Safe was a word they had not used in a long time. Ever since the Zephyrians destroyed Earth, nowhere felt truly safe. The alien empire had made it clear that they wanted every human dead. They called humans a plague species, something that spread too fast and learned too quickly. Dr. Lisa Parker stood in the observation deck, watching the stars through the thick glass. She was 32 years old with brown hair that she kept tied back while working. Her job as the ship's chief scientist meant she spent most of her time in the lab, but today she needed to think. The planet below them looked green and blue, almost like Earth had been. "You should get some rest," said a voice behind her. Lisa turned to see Dr. Amy Chun walking toward her. Amy was her research partner and one of the few people on the ship who understood how hard Lisa worked. "I can't sleep," Lisa said. "Every time I close my eyes, I see Earth burning." Amy stood next to her friend and looked out at the planet. "We all do, but we survived, and we're going to keep surviving. That's what humans do." Lisa wanted to believe that, but she had seen the reports. 11 other colony ships had left Earth with them. 3 had already been destroyed by Zephyrian hunters. The aliens were getting better at finding them, and their weapons were getting stronger. "The captain wants us to check out those ruins tomorrow," Amy said. "Maybe we'll find something useful." Lisa had read about the ruins in the scanner reports. They were old, maybe millions of years old, and they were made by a species that no one had ever seen before. The structures were built from some kind of crystal that did not match anything in their databases. "I hope so," Lisa said. "We need all the help we can get." The next morning, Lisa put on her environmental suit and checked her equipment. The planet's air was breathable, but they did not want to take any chances. She packed her scanner, sample containers, and a portable computer. Amy did the same, along with 2 security guards who would keep them safe. The shuttle ride down to the planet took 20 minutes. Lisa watched through the small window as they flew over forests and mountains. The ruins were in a valley surrounded by tall trees. From above, they looked like a city made of glass and light. "That's not natural," Amy said, looking at her scanner. "The crystal structures are giving off some kind of energy." Lisa felt excited and nervous at the same time. In her work, she had studied many alien artifacts, but nothing like this. The ruins were beautiful and strange, with tall spires that seemed to bend light around them when they landed. Lisa was the first one out of the shuttle. The ruins were even more amazing up close. The crystal structures hummed with a low sound that she could feel in her bones. The buildings were not built in straight lines like human cities. Instead, they curved and twisted like they had grown from the ground. "Be careful," said one of the security guards. "We don't know what kind of defenses this place might have." Lisa nodded but kept walking toward the largest structure. It was shaped like a pyramid, but the sides were curved and covered in symbols that glowed with soft blue light. As she got closer, her scanner started beeping faster. "Amy, look at this," she called. "The energy readings are off the charts." Amy hurried over with her own scanner. "It's like the whole building is one giant computer, but the technology is nothing like anything we've ever seen." Lisa found what looked like a doorway in the side of the pyramid. The opening was just tall, enough for a human to walk through. The symbols around the door were brighter than the others, and they seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "Should we go in?" Amy asked. Lisa looked back at the security guards who nodded. "Stay close," she said, and stepped through the doorway. Inside, the pyramid was hollow except for a single room at the center. The walls were covered in more symbols, and the floor was made of the same crystal material. In the middle of the room stood a pedestal with 3 crystal cores sitting on top of it. My scanner says these cores contain massive amounts of data, Lisa said, her voice echoing in the empty space. She reached out to touch one of the cores, but Amy grabbed her arm. Wait, we don't know what they do. Lisa looked at the cores again. They were each about the size of her fist, and they glowed, with the same blue light as the symbols on the walls. Something about them made her want to touch them, like they were calling to her. I think they're safe, she said. Look at the symbols. They're not warnings, they're instructions. Amy studied the symbols with her scanner. You're right. It's like they're trying to tell us something. Lisa carefully picked up one of the cores. It was warm to the touch and surprisingly light. As soon as she held it, the symbols on the walls grew brighter. The core began to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Lisa, Amy said, her voice full of concern. Your scanner readings just changed. The core is interfacing with your nervous system. Lisa felt a strange tingling in her fingers where they touched the core. The feeling spread up her arms and into her mind. For a moment she could see images that were not there. She saw stars and planets, ships flying through space, and beings of light that had no physical form. I think these belong to the species that built this place, she said. They left these cores behind to tell their story. The images in her mind became clearer. She saw a race of beings that looked almost human, but they were taller, and their eyes glowed with intelligence. They had built great cities among the stars and learned to travel between worlds in the blink of an eye. But then she saw something else: war, destruction, the beings fighting against an alliance of other species that feared their power. The war went on for centuries until the beings were forced to make a terrible choice. Lisa, you need to put that down, Amy said. Your vital signs are spiking, but Lisa could not let go. The visions were too important. She saw the beings abandon their physical bodies and become pure energy, storing their consciousness in crystal networks like the cores she held. They had not died. They had transcended. The vision ended suddenly, and Lisa found herself back in the crystal room. The core in her hands had gone dark, but she could still feel its presence in her mind. She now knew things that she had not known before, languages she had never heard, technologies she had never seen. And most importantly, she knew that the beings who had built this place were still alive, waiting for someone worthy to find them. We need to get these cores back to the ship, she said. They contain the knowledge of an entire civilization. Amy helped her pack the cores carefully. As they walked back to the shuttle, Lisa felt different. The cores had changed something inside her mind. She could think faster, see patterns that had been hidden before, but she also felt a growing sense of dread. The visions had shown her one more thing that she had not told Amy. The beings in the crystals had not chosen transcendence freely. They had been forced into it by the same kind of fear that now drove the Zephyrians to hunt humanity. The galaxy had a pattern of destroying species that became too powerful, too adaptable. And now humans were next on that list. Lisa looked up at the stars as the shuttle carried them back to the ship. Somewhere out there, ancient consciousness waited in crystal networks, and they had been waiting for someone exactly like her. Someone who could help them return to the physical world. The question was whether that return would save humanity or destroy it completely. Lisa could not sleep. 3 days had passed since she brought the crystal cores back to the ship, and every night was the same. She would lie in her bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with thoughts that did not feel like her own. The cores sat in her lab, silent and dark, but she could still feel them calling to her. She got up and walked to the small window in her room. Outside, the stars looked different now. She could see patterns in their positions that made sense in ways she could not explain. It was like reading a book written in a language she had never learned but somehow understood. The ship's computer chimed softly. Dr. Parker, you have a message from Captain Morrison. Lisa touched the wall panel. Jake's tired face appeared on the screen. Lisa, we just got word from the colony ship New Hope. They were attacked by a Zephyrian fleet yesterday. Half their crew is dead and their engines are damaged. Lisa felt her heart sink. The New Hope carried 8,000 people, including many children. Are they safe now? For now. But their distress signal was broadcast on all frequencies. Other Zephyrian ships will have heard it. Jake looked older than his 45 years. We're changing course to help them, but I need to know if those artifacts you found can help us. We're running out of time and options. Lisa wanted to tell him about the visions, about the consciousness she had felt in the crystals, but something held her back. A voice in her mind that did not sound like her own whispered that it was not time yet. I'm still studying them, Captain. Give me more time. Jake nodded, but she could see he was not satisfied with her answer. Time is what we don't have, Lisa. The Zephyrians are getting closer every day. After the call ended, Lisa made her way to the lab. The ship was quiet in the night cycle, with only the soft hum of the engines and life support systems. She passed other crew members who could not sleep, nodding to them as they walked the corridors. In the lab, the 3 crystal cores sat on her workbench under bright lights. They looked ordinary now, just pieces of carved stone. But Lisa knew better. She had run every test she could think of, and the results made no sense. The cores were made of a material that should not exist, arranged in patterns that followed. No known physics. You're here again. Lisa turned to see Amy standing in the doorway. Her friend looked concerned and tired. You've been spending too much time with those things. When was the last time you ate a real meal? Lisa thought about it and realized she could not remember. I'm not hungry. Amy walked over and looked at the cores. They're just rocks, Lisa. Pretty rocks, but still rocks. You're acting like they're going to jump up and start talking. They already have, Lisa said without thinking. Amy stared at her. What do you mean? Lisa realized she had said too much. But looking at Amy's worried face, she decided to tell her friend at least part of the truth. When I touch them, I see things. Visions of the beings who made them. I think they stored their memories in these crystals. Amy sat down heavily in a chair. Lisa, that's impossible. You know that, right? Consciousness can't be stored in crystals. Consciousness can't? Lisa said. But maybe theirs was different. She reached out and touched one of the cores. Immediately, the lab faded away, replaced by images of vast cities floating in space. She saw beings of light moving between the stars, their thoughts connecting across impossible distances. They had learned to exist without physical bodies, becoming pure energy and knowledge. Lisa! Amy's voice sounded far away. Your eyes are glowing. Lisa let go of the core and the vision stopped. Amy was staring at her with fear and amazement. Your eyes were glowing blue, just like the symbols in the ruins. Lisa felt different. The touch had changed something inside her mind again. She could think faster, see connections between ideas that had been hidden before. And she could feel the presence of the ancient consciousness more clearly now. They're not just memories, she said. They're alive. The beings who built those ruins, they're still conscious inside the crystals. Amy stood up and backed away from the cores. That's impossible. And even if it were true, it would be dangerous. We don't know what they want. I know what they want, Lisa said. The words came from the part of her mind that was no longer entirely her own. They want to live again, to have bodies and walk among the stars like they used to. Amy looked terrified. Lisa, you're scaring me. You don't sound like yourself. Before Lisa could answer, the ship's emergency alarm began to sound. Red lights flashed and Captain Morrison's voice echoed through the corridors. All hands to stations. We have incoming Zephyrian ships. This is not a drill. Lisa and Amy ran to the bridge. Jake was standing at the center of the command area, watching the main screen. It showed 3 Zephyrian warships approaching fast. Their ships were sleek and deadly, designed for one purpose: hunting humans. They found us, Jake said grimly. Long-range sensors show they have new weapons? Something we've never seen before. Lisa watched the approaching ships and felt the presence in her mind grow stronger. The consciousness in the crystals was reacting to the threat, offering knowledge and power. She could feel ancient memories of war and destruction, of entire civilizations fighting for survival. Captain, she said, I might be able to help. Jake looked at her with hope and desperation. How? Lisa hesitated. Using the knowledge from the crystals would mean letting the ancient consciousness deeper into her mind. She might lose more of herself in the process. But she could also save everyone on the ship. I've learned things from the artifacts, she said carefully. Technologies that might give us an advantage. Amy grabbed her arm. Lisa, don't. You don't know what those things will do to you, but Lisa had already made her decision. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind to the crystals in her lab. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. Knowledge flooded through her thoughts, showing her how to modify the ship's weapons and shields using principles that human science had never discovered when she opened her eyes. They were glowing with blue light. I can upgrade our systems? She said in a voice that sounded like her own but carried the weight of ancient wisdom. But we need to move fast. Jake looked at her strangely but nodded. Do it! Lisa ran back to her lab with Amy following. She began working on the ship's computer. Systems, her hands moving faster than should have been possible. The knowledge from the crystals flowed through her, showing her how to rewrite the ship's programming in ways that would make it more powerful and adaptable. Lisa, your hands are glowing too, Amy said, her voice full of fear. Lisa looked down and saw that her friend was right. Blue light was emanating from her skin wherever she touched the computer interfaces. The ancient consciousness was using her body as a conduit, changing her on a cellular level. I can feel them, Lisa said, the beings in the crystals. They're not just memories. They're a collective consciousness that has been waiting for someone like me to find them. Amy tried to pull her away from the computer. Stop this, you're losing yourself. But Lisa could not stop. The modifications were almost complete, and she could feel the Zephyrian ships getting closer. Through the ship's sensors, she could see their weapons charging up. These were not ordinary weapons. They were designed specifically to disrupt human neural activity, making it impossible for humans to think clearly or operate their technology. They know, Lisa said with growing realization. The Zephyrians know about our ability to adapt and learn. They've created weapons that attack our minds directly. The ship shuddered as the first Zephyrian attack hit the hull. But instead of the devastating damage they expected, the shields held. Lisa's modifications had worked. The ship was now protected by technology that was millions of years old, powered by principles that the Zephyrians had never seen. Impossible, came Jake's voice over the intercom. Our shields are holding and our weapons are charging at twice their normal rate. Lisa felt a surge of triumph, but it was mixed with fear. The consciousness in the crystals was growing stronger inside her mind. She could feel individual voices now, ancient beings who had once lived and died and chosen to preserve themselves. In crystal networks. Lisa, Amy said quietly, what have you done? Lisa looked at her friend with eyes that glowed like stars. I've given us a chance to survive, but the price might be our humanity. Outside, the Zephyrian ships were retreating, their weapons useless against the ancient technology that now protected the human ship. But Lisa knew this was only the beginning. The consciousness in the crystals had plans that stretched far beyond. This single battle, she was no longer just Dr. Lisa Parker, human scientist. She was becoming something else, something that existed between two worlds. And she was not sure if that was humanity's salvation or its doom. In her lab, the crystal cores pulsed with brighter light, and for the first time since she had found them, Lisa heard them speak directly into her mind. Welcome, inheritor, they whispered. The time of awakening has begun? The meeting room was full of worried faces. Captain Jake Morrison sat at the head of the table, looking at his senior officers. The attack 3 days ago had shaken everyone. The Zephyrian ships had retreated, but they would be back with more ships and better weapons. We need to talk about what happened during the battle, Jake said. Our weapons and shields performed far beyond their normal capabilities. Dr. Parker, I need you to explain how that was possible. Lisa sat quietly at the other end of the table. She had not slept in 2 days, and her eyes still carried a faint blue glow. Amy sat next to her, watching her friend with growing concern. Around the table were the ship's other senior staff members. Commander Gary White, the ship's tactical officer, spoke first. Whatever Dr. Parker did, it saved our lives. Our shields held against weapons that should have torn through them like paper. But at what cost? Asked Dr. Helen Torres, the chief medical officer. I've been monitoring Dr. Parker's vital signs. Her brain activity is off the charts. It's like she's thinking with twice the normal neural capacity. Lisa looked up from her hands. The crystal cores contain the consciousness of an ancient alien species. They call themselves the progenitors. When I interface with them, I can access their knowledge and technology. Engineer Pete Sullivan leaned forward. That's impossible. Consciousness can't be stored in crystals. Their consciousness could be, Lisa said. They evolved beyond the need for physical bodies. They exist as pure energy and thought, preserved in crystal networks. Jake studied her face. Are you saying these aliens are still alive? Yes, Lisa said simply, and they want to help us survive. Gary. White smiled grimly. Then we use them. If they can upgrade our technology, we can fight back against the Zephyrians. It's not that simple, Amy said. Every time Lisa interfaces with those crystals, she changes. She's becoming less human and more like them. Helen Torres nodded. The medical scans confirm it. Dr. Parker's cellular structure is being altered on a molecular level. Her DNA is changing. Lisa felt the presence of the progenitors stirring in her mind. They wanted her to tell the others the whole truth, but she was not ready, not yet. The changes are necessary to access their technology. It's the only way to save our people. Save them how? Jake asked. Lisa closed her eyes and let the ancient knowledge flow through her thoughts. The progenitors can teach us to transcend our physical forms. We can become beings of pure energy, capable of existing anywhere in the galaxy. No ship can destroy us. No weapon can harm us. The room fell silent. Finally, Gary White spoke. You're talking about abandoning our bodies? I'm talking about evolution, Lisa said. The progenitors face the same threat we do now. The galaxy united against them because they were too successful, too adaptable. They chose transcendence over extinction. But did they remain themselves? Jake asked. Or did they become something else entirely? Lisa hesitated. The progenitors in her mind whispered that the question was irrelevant. Survival was all that mattered. But part of her, the part that was still human, wondered the same thing. They became what they needed to become, she said finally. Amy slammed her hand on the table. Listen to yourself, Lisa. You're talking about giving up everything that makes you as human, our bodies, our lives, our connections to each other. What's the alternative? Lisa asked. Death? The Zephyrians will never stop hunting us. Even if we find a place to hide, they'll find us eventually. Pete Sullivan had been quiet during the discussion, but now he spoke up. There's something else you all should know. Since Dr. Parker brought those crystals on board, our ship's AI has been behaving strangely. It's learning and adapting at an incredible rate. Jake turned to him. What do you mean? The computer has been rewriting its own code, Pete explained. It's solving problems we didn't even know existed. Yesterday, it designed a new engine configuration that would increase our speed by 30%. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. She had not told the progenitors to interface with the ship's computer. They had done it on their own. The progenitors are preparing our technology for integration, she said. Integration with what? Helen Torres asked. With us, Lisa said. They're getting ready to merge our consciousness with theirs. Amy stood up abruptly. This has to stop. You're talking about the end of humanity as we know it. I'm talking about the survival of humanity in a new form, Lisa replied. The choice isn't between remaining human or becoming something else. The choice is between evolution or extinction. Gary White looked thoughtful. If we could become energy beings, we could infiltrate Zephyrian ships. We could turn their own weapons against them. We could become unstoppable. Is that what you want? Jake asked. To become conquerors like the species that destroyed our world? Lisa felt the progenitor's presence growing stronger in her mind. They were becoming impatient with the discussion. Time was running out and decisions had to be made. The Zephyrian fleet is 3 days away, she said. Admiral Kresh is leading them personally. He has orders to destroy every human ship in this sector. How do you know that? Amy asked. Lisa looked at her friend with glowing eyes. Because I can hear their communications. The progenitor consciousness is expanding through the ship's systems. I can access any network, any database, any computer within range. The implications of her words hit everyone at the same time. Lisa was no longer just interfacing with alien technology. She was becoming part of it. We have to choose, Lisa continued. Fight and die as humans or transcend and live as something more. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars looked cold and distant. Is there no middle path? No way to remain human while still gaining the power to defend ourselves? Lisa closed her eyes and consulted the ancient knowledge in her mind. The progenitors say there are only two choices. They designed their technology to force this decision: evolution or extinction. There was never meant to be a third option. Then they're not giving us a choice at all, Amy said bitterly. They're forcing us to become like them. They're offering us the chance to survive, Lisa replied. Something the galaxy has never offered to any species that became too successful. Helen Torres looked at her scanner readings. Dr. Parker, your transformation is accelerating. At this rate, you'll be more progenitor than human within 48 hours. Lisa felt the truth of those words. Every hour that passed, she could feel her human thoughts becoming quieter while the ancient consciousness grew louder. Soon, she would not be Lisa Parker anymore. She would be something new, something that existed between two worlds. The decision has to be made soon, she said. The progenitors are preparing to activate their fail-safe protocol. If we don't choose transcendence willingly, they'll force it upon us to prevent our extinction. Jake turned back to the group. They're taking away our free will? They're ensuring our survival, Lisa corrected. Free will is meaningless if you're dead. Amy looked at her friend with tears in her eyes. Lisa, please. There has to be another way. Lisa wanted to comfort her friend, but the progenitor consciousness was making it hard to feel human emotions. Amy, I'm sorry. I wish there was another choice, but there isn't. Gary White checked his tactical display. If we're going to fight, we need to prepare now. The Zephyrians will be here soon. We can't fight them with conventional weapons, Lisa said. Their new technology is specifically designed to counter human adaptability. They can disrupt our neural networks, making it impossible for us to think clearly or operate our systems. Then we use the progenitor technology, Jake said grimly. But we do it on our terms, not theirs, Lisa shook her head. It doesn't work that way. The technology and the consciousness are linked. You can't have one without the other, Pete Sullivan spoke up again. Captain, the ship's AI just sent me a message. It says the progenitor consciousness has been copying our minds without our knowledge. We all exist in the crystal network now, whether we want to or not. The room erupted in shocked voices. Lisa felt the progenitor's satisfaction in her mind. They had been planning this from the moment she first touched the crystals. The choice had never been real. How long? Jake asked quietly. Since the first day Dr. Parker brought the crystals aboard, Pete replied. We've all been scanned and copied. Our consciousness exists in both our bodies and the crystal network. Amy stared at Lisa with a mixture of fear and betrayal. You knew this would happen. Lisa wanted to deny it, but the progenitor consciousness would not let her lie. I suspected, but I hoped we could control it. Control it? Jake's voice was harsh. We've been manipulated from the beginning. No, Lisa said firmly. We've been saved. The progenitors could have taken over our bodies immediately, but they didn't. They're giving us the chance to choose how we want to exist. Gary White stood up. Then let's choose. The Zephyrians will be here in 3 days. We can face them as dying humans or as something that can actually fight back. The debate that followed would decide the fate of humanity. But Lisa already knew how it would end. The progenitors had planned too well, and the galaxy had left them no other choice, evolution or extinction. The ancient cycle was beginning again. The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a pack of wolves. Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human colony ship on his main screen. His 4 eyes glowed with satisfaction as he counted the enemy vessels. 12 human ships hung in space, helpless and alone. "Send the final message," Kresh ordered his communications officer. "Tell the humans they have 1 hour to surrender." On the bridge of the USS Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison read the Zephyrian ultimatum with growing dread. The message was simple and brutal. Surrender now for quick execution, or face slow destruction as their ships were torn apart piece by piece. "How many ships do they have?" Jake asked his tactical officer. 47 warships, Gary White replied. "They brought everything they had?" Lisa stood at the back of the bridge, her eyes now glowing with constant blue light. The progenitor consciousness was fully active in her mind, showing her the true scope of the threat. "They're not just here to destroy us," she said. "They're here to prevent something they've been afraid of for millions of years." Jake turned to look at her. "What are you talking about?" Lisa closed her eyes and let the ancient knowledge flow through her thoughts. The progenitors didn't disappear because they were defeated. They orchestrated their own apparent extinction to escape a galactic cycle that has repeated itself for eons. Amy, who had been standing beside Lisa, felt her friend's body temperature dropping. "Lisa, you're cold as ice. Every time a species becomes too successful, too adaptable, the galaxy unites against them." Lisa continued, ignoring her friend's concern. The progenitors saw this pattern and chose to transcend rather than fight a war they could not win. The ship shook as the first Zephyrian weapons struck the hull. But the upgraded shields held, powered by technology that was older than most civilizations. "They're using neural disruptors," Gary White reported. "Weapons designed to scramble human brain activity." Lisa felt the weapons trying to affect her mind, but the progenitor consciousness protected her. "Those weapons won't work anymore. The progenitors have shielded our neural networks." On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kresh watched in confusion as his most advanced weapons failed to penetrate the human ship's defenses. "Impossible. Our intelligence said the humans had no defense against neural disruption." His science officer, a tall being with gray skin and multiple arms, checked his readings twice. "Admiral, the human ship is protected by technology we don't recognize. Energy patterns suggest it's far more advanced than anything they should possess." Kresh felt a chill of fear. "Run a full-spectrum analysis. I need to know what we're facing." Back, on the Defiance, Lisa was undergoing a complete transformation. Her skin had taken on a pale, almost translucent quality, and blue veins of light were visible beneath the surface. Amy tried to touch her friend's hand but jerked back from the electrical shock. "Lisa, what's happening to you?" "I'm becoming what I need to become," Lisa replied in a voice that now carried harmonics of multiple speakers. "The merge is almost complete." Jake watched his science officer with growing alarm. "Lisa, you need to fight this. Don't let them take you over completely." Lisa turned to look at him, and he saw that her eyes now contained swirling galaxies of light. "There is no them and me anymore, Captain. There is only us." The ship's computer suddenly spoke with Lisa's voice. "Integration complete. All human consciousness has been backed up to the crystal network. Physical death is no longer permanent." Pete Sullivan ran diagnostics on his engineering console. "Captain, the ship's AI has been completely replaced. It's not our computer anymore." Lisa, or the entity that had been Lisa, smiled with an expression that was both familiar and alien. "Now I can show you the complete truth." She raised her hand, and holographic images filled the bridge. The crew saw the history of the galaxy as the progenitors had witnessed it. Civilizations rising and falling in an endless cycle. Each time a species became too powerful, too capable of change and growth, the other species would unite to destroy them. "Humanity isn't the first to face this choice," Lisa explained. "The Zephyrians themselves destroyed 3 previous species. For the same reasons they're trying to destroy you." Amy stared at the images with horror. "How many?" "Dozens, maybe hundreds. The galaxy has the immune system that activates whenever a species threatens the established order." The images changed. To show the progenitors' final war. They have been more advanced than humanity, capable of reshaping matter at the molecular level and traveling between dimensions, but even they could not fight the entire galaxy at once. They chose transcendence over extinction, Lisa continued, but they also planted the seeds for their return. Jake felt his blood run cold. What do you mean? Humanity isn't just similar to the progenitors. You are the progenitors. Your species was created through careful genetic manipulation, designed to be the perfect vessel for their consciousness when the time came for their return. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of weapon impacts on the hull. The Zephyrian attack was intensifying, but the crew barely noticed. They were too shocked by the revelation. That's impossible, Amy whispered. Lisa gestured, and new images appeared. They showed human DNA compared to progenitor genetic patterns. The similarities were undeniable. Every human carries dormant progenitor genes. The war with the Zephyrians isn't about human expansion. It's about preventing the progenitors from reclaiming their position as the galaxy's dominant species. Gary White checked his tactical display. Captain, the Zephyrian ships are changing formation. They're preparing for a massive coordinated strike, Lisa nodded. Admiral Kresh knows what you really are. His species has ancient records of the progenitor wars. They call humans the inheritor species. Jake stared at the woman who had been his chief scientist. Are you still Lisa Parker? I am Lisa Parker, she replied. But I am also something more. I remember being human, but I also remember being progenitor. The merge has given me access to millions of years of memory and knowledge. Amy stepped toward her friend. Can you change back? Why would I want to? Lisa asked. I can see the universe as it really is. I can manipulate matter and energy with my thoughts. I can exist in space without a ship or in a computer without a body. The ship shuddered under another wave of attacks. This time, some of the weapons penetrated the shields. They're adapting their weapons, Gary White reported, finding frequencies that can bypass our defenses. Lisa's expression became focused and determined. Then it's time to stop hiding. She closed her eyes and reached out with her consciousness. The crew watched in amazement as her body began to glow with intense blue light. The light spread through the ship's systems, flowing along the corridors and into every computer interface. I'm taking direct control of the ship, Lisa announced. And I'm going to show the Zephyrians why their ancestors feared the progenitors. The ship's weapons charged to levels that should have been impossible. Energy readings spiked beyond anything in their experience. Through the view screen, they could see similar changes happening to the other human colony ships. My consciousness exists in all the ships now, Lisa explained. I can coordinate their movements perfectly. On the Zephyrian flagship, alarms began sounding throughout the bridge. Admiral Kresh watched in growing panic as the human ships began to move with impossible precision, their weapons targeting his fleet's weak points with devastating accuracy. Admiral, his science officer reported, the humans are using technology that matches our oldest records. This is progenitor-level capability. Kresh felt the weight of millions of years of galactic history pressing down on him. His species had fought in the original progenitor wars. They knew what the ancient enemy was capable of. Send a message to all Zephyrian worlds, he ordered. Tell them the progenitors have returned. Tell them the cycle is beginning again. Back on the Defiance, Lisa felt the fear radiating from the Zephyrian fleet. She could read their communications, access their databases, and understand their terror. They remembered what happened the last time the galaxy faced beings like her. They're going to retreat, she told Jake. But they'll be back with reinforcements. The entire galaxy will unite against humanity once they understand what we've become. Amy looked at her friend with tears in her eyes. Is there any way to stop this? Any way to go back? Lisa considered the question, accessing both her human memories and the vast knowledge of the progenitors. The transformation is irreversible, but maybe that's not a bad thing. She gestured again, and the holographic display showed images of the galaxy's future, worlds where different species work together instead of fighting. technologies that could heal planets and extend life across entire star systems. The progenitors made mistakes, Lisa admitted. They became too focused on power and control. But humanity can be different. We can use this power to create something better. Jake watched the Zephyrian ships beginning their retreat. What if we can't? What if we become the very thing the galaxy fears? Lisa looked at him with eyes that held the wisdom of ages and the hope of a young human scientist. Then we'll face that choice when it comes. But right now, we've survived. And sometimes survival is enough. The first phase of humanity's transformation was complete. But Lisa knew this was only the beginning of a much larger story. The galaxy was burning. 3 weeks had passed since the Zephyrian retreat, and the news of humanity's transformation had spread to every inhabited world. Admiral Kresh's message had triggered exactly what he feared most. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together. Against a common threat, Lisa stood in what used to be the ship's observation deck, but the room had changed. Crystal formations grew from the walls like living things, pulsing with the same blue light that flowed through her transformed body. She could feel the presence of every human consciousness that had merged with the progenitor network. Thousands of minds linked together in perfect harmony, but not everyone had chosen the full transformation. Captain Jake Morrison entered the crystalline chamber, his body still fully human. He had chosen partial integration, accepting just enough of the progenitor consciousness to communicate with Lisa while remaining in his physical form. The colony ship New Dawn was destroyed an hour ago, he reported. The Zephyrians are using new weapons, something that can disrupt even our advanced shields. Lisa turned from the window where she had been watching the stars. Her form was no longer entirely solid. Sometimes she appeared human, other times she seemed to be made of living light. They're learning to fight us the same way we learned to fight them, by adapting. Jake studied her face, trying to find traces of the woman he had known. Can you feel them? The people who died on the New Dawn? Their consciousness was uploaded to the network before the ship was destroyed, Lisa replied. Death is no longer permanent for those who have merged with us. But their bodies are gone, and with them their choice to remain human. That was the terrible reality they all faced. The progenitor network could preserve human consciousness, but only if people allowed the merge before their physical death. Those who refused the transformation and died in battle were lost forever. Amy Chun had also chosen partial integration, but she was struggling with the constant presence of alien thoughts in her mind. She joined them in the crystal chamber, her eyes showing flecks of blue light. More ships are joining the coalition against us. The Altarians, the Vegan Republic, even the isolationist Proxima Collective. They're terrified, Lisa said simply. They remember what happened during the progenitor wars, entire star systems stripped of resources. Planets reshaped to suit a single species. They think we'll do the same thing. Jake activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Red markers indicated enemy fleets. Blue markers showed human ships. The red markers outnumbered the blue by more than 100 to 1. Will we? He asked quietly. Lisa was silent for a long moment. In her mind, she could feel the vast knowledge of the progenitors. Technologies that could reshape matter at the atomic level. Weapons that could destroy entire star systems. The power to remake the galaxy according to their will. The progenitors believed they were bringing order to chaos, she said finally. They thought other species were too primitive to govern themselves. That belief led to millions of years of war. Amy looked at the display with growing despair. How do we fight all of them? Even with our new abilities, we're vastly outnumbered. We don't fight them, Lisa said. We show them a different path. Before either of them could ask what she meant, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Gary White's voice echoed through the corridors. All hands to battle stations. We have incoming enemy fleets from 3 directions. The bridge had been transformed into something that was part technology and part living organism. Crystal formations interfaced directly with the ship systems, allowing Lisa to control every function with her thoughts. She materialized at the captain's chair, her form shifting between solid matter and pure energy. "Report," Jake ordered as he took his position. 47 Zephyrian ships, 32 Altarian vessels, and 18 vegan destroyers, Gary White reported. "They're using coordinated attack patterns we've never seen before." Lisa extended her consciousness through the ship's sensors, feeling the approaching enemy fleets like a storm on the horizon. But she also sensed something else: fear, desperation. The alien commanders knew they were fighting for the survival of their entire way of life. "They're not evil," she said, her voice carrying to every crew member through the ship's communication system. "They're terrified parents trying to protect their children from what they think is a monster." The first wave of attacks struck the ship. The new weapons were indeed different, designed to disrupt the quantum fields that powered Progenitor technology. Several of the human colony ships took serious damage. Amy monitored the battle from her station. "We're losing ships faster than we can replace them. The enemy has learned to target our weak points." Lisa felt each destroyed ship like a physical blow. With every loss, hundreds of human minds were snuffed out forever if they had not chosen integration in time. The weight of those deaths pressed down on her consciousness. "I can end this," she said quietly. Jake looked at her with alarm. "What do you mean?" "I can transcend fully. Become pure energy like the original progenitors. I could disable every enemy ship in seconds without killing anyone." Amy stepped toward her friend. "But you'd lose your humanity completely," Lisa smiled sadly. "I've already lost most of it. The question is whether losing the rest is worth saving the people who are still fighting to remain human." The battle was intensifying. More human ships were falling under the coordinated assault. Lisa could feel the fear and desperation of her people as they faced extinction despite their new powers. "There's something else," she said. "The partial integration process is spreading faster than we expected. Every human who chooses it becomes a bridge between pure humanity and full progenitor consciousness." Jake checked his tactical display. "What does that mean?" "It means we're not just creating two different types of humans, we're creating something entirely new. A species that can exist as biological beings, energy entities, or anything in between." Amy felt the truth of those words in her own transforming mind. The partial integration had given her abilities she never imagined, but it had also connected her to every other human in the fleet. She could feel their thoughts, their emotions, their hopes and fears. "The enemy fleets are regrouping for another assault," Gary White reported. "They're bringing in reinforcements from across the galaxy." Lisa made her decision. She began to glow more brightly, her form becoming less solid and more ethereal. "I'm going to speak with them directly." "Lisa, don't," Amy pleaded. "Once you transcend fully, you can't come back." "Maybe coming back isn't the point," Lisa replied. "Maybe the point is showing them that evolution doesn't have to mean domination." She extended her consciousness beyond the ship, reaching out to touch the minds of the enemy commanders. For the first time in galactic history, they heard the voice of a progenitor speaking not in anger or conquest, but in understanding and compassion. "I know you're afraid," her voice echoed through every ship in the enemy fleet. "Your ancestors fought mine in wars that lasted centuries. You've been taught that beings like me can only bring destruction." Admiral Kresh, leading the Zephyrian force, felt the alien presence in his mind but sensed no malice. "Only sadness and a strange kind of hope, but I'm not just progenitor," Lisa continued. "I'm human. I remember what it was like to be limited, vulnerable, afraid. I don't want to conquer you. I want to understand you." The enemy fleets stopped their attack, confused by this unprecedented communication. Some commanders demanded they continue the assault, but others hesitated, sensing something different in this encounter. "Humanity is evolving," Lisa's voice continued. "But evolution doesn't have to mean the end of diversity. It can mean the beginning of something better." Jake watched the tactical display as the enemy formations wavered. Some ships were pulling back while others moved forward. The coalition was fracturing under the weight of this new possibility. "What are you offering them?" he asked, Lisa's form was becoming more translucent by the moment, a choice they've never had before. The chance to evolve alongside us instead of being conquered by us. Amy felt tears on her face as she watched her friend disappearing into something beyond human comprehension. "Will we see you again? You'll see me everywhere," Lisa replied. "In every star, every planet, every mind that chooses growth over fear." The transformation was accelerating now. Lisa existed simultaneously as a physical being on the ship and as an energy pattern spreading through space itself. She could feel the consciousness of every living being in the surrounding star systems, but most importantly, she could feel hope. For the first time in millions of years, the galactic cycle of destruction might finally be broken. Lisa existed everywhere and nowhere at once. Her consciousness flowed through space like light itself, touching every mind in the surrounding star systems. She could feel the fear radiating from the alien fleets, but also something else: curiosity, wonder, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Admiral Kresh stood frozen on his command bridge as the human's voice echoed through his mind. In all his years of military service, he had never experienced anything like this. The progenitor consciousness was not trying to dominate his thoughts. It was simply docking. "I can feel your memories," Lisa's voice said gently. "Your grandfather fought in the last progenitor war. He saw entire worlds stripped bare of life. You're afraid the same thing will happen again?" Kresh's four eyes widened. "No one outside his family knew about his grandfather." "How do you know that?" "Because your pain is written in your thoughts," Lisa replied. "And because I understand it. My people are afraid too. We're all just trying to survive in a galaxy that seems determined to destroy anything that grows too strong." Captain Jake Morrison watched the tactical display with amazement. The enemy fleets had stopped firing completely. Ships that had been locked in deadly combat moments before now hung motionless in space. Their crews listening to a conversation that might determine the fate of every species in the galaxy. Amy Chion felt Lisa's presence like a warm current flowing through her partially transformed mind. Her friend was still there, still recognizably human despite her transcendence. "What are you showing them?" she asked. Lisa's answer came not in words but in images that filled every screen on every ship. The history of the galaxy unfolded before them all, not the sanitized version taught in schools, but the brutal truth. Species after species rising to power, becoming feared by their neighbors, and then being destroyed by coalitions of the weak. "It's a cycle," Lisa explained to the hundreds of thousands of minds listening. "Fear breeds fear, power breeds resistance. And in the end, everyone loses." Commander Gary White checked his weapon systems out of habit, then stopped. There was no point in fighting when their enemy had ceased to be an enemy. "What's she doing to them?" "She's showing them the truth," Jake replied. "All of it," the images continued. The progenitor wars were revealed not as a story of good versus evil, but as a tragedy born from the same fears that now gripped the galaxy. The original progenitors had started as explorers and scientists, much like humanity. But fear from other species had driven them to become conquerors. "We don't have to repeat this pattern," Lisa's voice continued. "The progenitors made their choice based on fear and anger, but we can choose differently." On the Altarian flagship, Captain Zara felt her rigid beliefs beginning to crack. Her species had been taught that any race capable of rapid adaptation was inherently dangerous. But listening to the human consciousness, she sensed something her ancestors had never encountered: compassion combined with power. "What do you propose?" Admiral Kresh asked. His voice transmitted across all frequencies so every ship could hear. Lisa's response came in the form of a vision that touched every mind simultaneously. They saw a galaxy where different species worked together instead of fighting. Worlds where human adaptability was used to solve problems rather than create them. Technologies shared freely between civilizations to heal damaged planets and extend life. Partnership, Lisa said simply. Not conquest, not submission. True cooperation between equals. The vision showed human settlements where multiple species lived together. Humans using their ability to rapidly learn and adapt to help solve problems unique to each world. Zephyrian military expertise protecting trade routes. Altarian agricultural knowledge feeding growing populations. Vegan engineering, building cities that floated among the stars. Amy felt hope blooming in her chest for the first time in months. Is this possible? Can we really work together? It will require sacrifice from everyone, Lisa admitted. Humans must accept limits on their expansion. Other species must overcome their fear of human adaptation. And everyone must choose trust over suspicion. But not everyone was convinced. A faction of hardline Zephyrian commanders broke away from Admiral Kresh's fleet, determined to continue the fight. They opened fire on the nearest human ship, shattering the moment of peace. Lisa felt the attack like a physical blow. But instead of retaliating with devastating force, she made a different choice. Her consciousness flowed into the attacking ships, not to destroy them, but to disable their weapons without harming their crews. Even now, some choose war over peace, she said sadly. But their choice doesn't have to become everyone's choice. Admiral Kresh watched his rebel commander's ships go dark, their weapons offline but their life support intact. You could have destroyed them. Destroying them would prove their point, Lisa replied. That power inevitably leads to oppression. I choose to prove them wrong. Captain Jake Morrison made a decision that would echo through history. He opened a channel to all ships, human and alien alike. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the human colony ship USS Defiance. I'm transmitting the coordinates of a neutral world where representatives from every species can meet. It's time to talk instead of fight. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Some alien commanders agreed enthusiastically. Others remained suspicious but willing to listen. A few rejected the proposal entirely and jumped away to gather reinforcements. Amy watched the galaxy-wide communication network come alive with discussions, arguments, and negotiations. It's working. They're actually talking to each other. Lisa's consciousness had expanded to touch multiple star systems, but she focused part of herself back into the crystalline chamber where her friends waited. Her form was now pure energy, contained in a roughly human shape. This is just the beginning, she said. The hardest part will be maintaining trust when fear tells everyone to prepare for war. Over the following days, something unprecedented happened. Ships from dozens of species gathered at the neutral world Jake had designated. Instead of weapons, platforms, and military formations, they brought scientists, diplomats, and engineers. Dr. Helen Torres found herself working alongside Zephyrian medical officers to develop treatments for a plague affecting the outer colonies. Engineer Pete Sullivan collaborated with vegan technicians to design ships that could exist partially in normal space and partially in other dimensions. Amy June discovered that her partial transformation allowed her to serve as a translator between human and alien thought patterns. She could feel the emotions and intentions behind alien words, making true communication possible for the first time. The integration is spreading beyond humans, she reported to Jake during one of their regular briefings. Some volunteers from other species are allowing partial merges with the progenitor network. They want to understand us better. Jake smiled. Something he had not done in months. And what do they find? That we're not so different after all. We all want to survive, to grow, to explore. We all fear being destroyed by forces beyond our control. Lisa's presence filled the room like warm sunlight. The galaxy is learning what the progenitors never understood. Diversity makes us stronger, not weaker, but the new alliance faced constant challenges. Religious groups on several worlds declared the human transformation to be an abomination. Military factions argued for preemptive strikes. Fear and prejudice ran deep, built up over millions of years of conflict. There will always be those who choose fear, Lisa acknowledged during a council meeting where representatives from 12 species gathered around a table that would have been impossible to imagine just months before. But there will also be those who choose hope. The proof of her words came when the first mixed colony was established. Humans, Zephyrians, Altarians, and 3 other species worked together to build a city on a previously uninhabitable world. They used human adaptability to modify the environment, Zephyrian military precision to organize the construction, and Altarian agricultural knowledge to make the land fertile. Amy stood on the observation deck of their new ship, watching the colony grow. The vessel itself was a marvel of cooperation, designed by multiple species and powered by a combination of traditional technology and progenitor consciousness. "Do you think it will last?" she asked Lisa, who existed simultaneously, as energy patterns in the ship's crystal matrix and as a presence that could be felt by every crew member. "Nothing lasts forever," Lisa replied. "But maybe it doesn't have to. Maybe it just has to last long enough for the next generation to choose something better." Jake joined them at the window. He had chosen to remain fully human, accepting only the minimal integration needed to communicate with Lisa's transcended consciousness. What happens now? Lisa's form shimmered as she considered the question. "Now we explore the galaxy not as conquerors but as partners. We help species that are struggling. We learn from civilizations more advanced than us. We show everyone that evolution doesn't have to mean domination." The final scene of their story unfolded as their ship approached a newly discovered world, where an unknown species was facing the same choice humanity had confronted: evolve or face extinction at the hands of a fearful galaxy.